Hi, Peter Boyles. Welcome one more time to The Shoot. We, of course, have named this after professional wrestling, where everything is a work and occasionally things are real and they call them shoots. And so when we began the show, and again, thank you to Mark Crowley and Brian Taylor and Kelly Michaels, we called it a shoot. And it's been incredibly successful. Great shows to come. So the night that, and it was a wonderful night, the induction of Alan Berg into the Press Club Hall of Fame. And it was like, as people say, old home week. And you walked in, there were so many amazing people from the past and so many people that from the present that were there to honor Alan and others. This guy, Aaron Harber. I worked with Aaron Harber. Actually, Aaron Harber saved my rear end one night when he took the show because I was sick. And I looked at him, I said, you know, this guy is he's a treasure of Denver media and been involved in radio, television. I said, come in and do the shoot. And he said, sure. Thank you.
Hey,
it's a pleasure to have you here.
It's an honor to be here.
All right, so.
Here I am with an icon of Denver radio.
Right. That a dime. You started in radio.
I did. In talk radio.
Just pick it up. Go from there.
So I actually never had any intention of being in the media. I was interviewed by a guy who did a talk radio show, who you have to know, named Dennis Burkfeld.
Of course. Yeah.
And Dennis is, I mean, he's a TV actor. Yeah. He's, in theater. A lot of people saw him in Married with Children on TV. Consummate talent, great voice, and so he was doing talk radio, and so we did a show together, and several months later, he asked me to, if I could sub for him for one day because he had a medical appointment or something like that. Because we had a great time, and he had a call-in show, and I was responding to the callers, so he really enjoyed that. So I did the show for one day, and it was at that one was at KFKA.
There you are, yeah.
I think 1310 AM in Greeley. Great signal.
Oh, yeah.
That signal gets into Denver. And so I did it, had a great time, and then he said he was going on vacation, a couple months later. Would I guest host for a week? And I said, sure, I'd be happy to do that, and had a lot of fun. It turned out he was listening in.
Yeah.
So he was auditioning me, even though I didn't know it. So afterwards, he said, why don't we do a little network? And I'll have a show. And he's a generalist. He knows everything about everything. Renaissance man type of guy, too. And so he said, you can have a show. And I was interested in citizen rights, consumer affairs, obviously public affairs, things like that. And then we got Gail Kessler to do a show on focused on women's issues. So we had a lineup of maybe 8 or 9 hours of programming a day, and I went to Lee Larson, and Lee,
who's done the shoot.
Yeah, well,
he's sat in that chair.
Another icon like you.
Oh, he's
so
one of a kind.
So Lee was, of course, at Clear Channel. He was running all 45 stations in multiple state area. And he was in charge of the Broncos network. And he said, look, Aaron, for X number of dollars a month, I'll put you up on Galaxy 5, transponder, whatever, with the Broncos. He said the only hitch is and it's the Rockies network too. So he said, the only problem you have is if the Rockies have a day game, you're going to get preempted. Yeah. So we put my show last so that I would be the one preempted, not Dennis or Gail. That was our plan anyway. Anyway, we went on the air. Any radio station could pick us up. So we were getting picked, and we were free. And so we were getting picked up by little radio stations all over the state. We've got, Alice here in Denver. Well, there used to be a station named Ralph.
Well, that's because of Ralph Cramden and Alice Cramden.
Right,
the Honeymooners.
That's exactly. Right, yeah. No one knew that. Right. No one knew that, but that's exactly right. Yeah. So we were on the air. We had a great time. and because it's radio, you know, it was easy to get, you know, right before the, you know, one presidential election, you know, Dan Quayle calls me from Air Force Two and stuff like that. We had a great time.
Did you like Dan Quayle?
Yeah.
I did too.
Yeah, I didn't ask him to spell potato, but yeah.
Two old guys talking. Dan Quayle came in and sat in the studio after he was out of office, had written a book. And actually, Dan Quayle is a hero now that Pence went to him and said, what should I do? And Dan Quayle, to his everlasting honor, said, you can't do it. And that was Dan Quayle. And I met Dan Quayle. I just really, really liked him. I thought he was a good guy. Yeah.
Good golfer.
Is he?
Oh, he's probably
a rich kid.
Probably one of the better ones to ever step in the White House.
Good skier.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
There you are.
Anyway, so I got an offer then from Boston group, Talk America Radio Network.
Yeah.
And they wanted to put my show on. They had 51 stations across the country. Not big, you know, it's mainly middle and small markets. Like they weren't in New York City. But they were in White Plains.
It was the beginning of syndication.
Yeah. Well, actually, you know,
Limbaugh
was already big.
Yeah.
Well, he was already huge.
One of a kind.
Yeah, and he pretty much saved AM radio.
Totally did.
Yeah. Yeah. And but we called the show for Talk America Radio Network. We called it After the Rush.
I remember that. Yeah.
And he didn't like that.
No, he did not.
And he sued me for $20 million.
Did he really?
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah. So Rush and I duked it out here in federal court.
Yeah.
Before Judge Richard Maich.
I got Richard Maich stories. He's a great man.
Yeah. And he lost.
Yeah, I remember
and I
all
won.
This. Yeah.
And because of that, Channel 12 asked me to guest host a show.
That's when we met.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah,
that could be.
Yeah.
And so I did that. They liked what they saw, and then they offered me the opportunity to do a regular show with Danny Newsom.
Yeah.
And we were co-hosts.
Yeah.
And we did that for a year or two, and then they offered me my own show, which we called Spontaneous Combustion.
Yeah.
And I've been on ever since. So.
You just signed a deal. Can you talk about that, or rather not?
Oh no, it's totally not. You shouldn't have mentioned that.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, I'm kidding.
I never know. Radio, you guys. Don't talk about that. Well, you just told me.
No, so yeah, I just signed a deal last week with Channel 12. I just did 15 election shows to try to give the public, you know, some inside information on candidates and issues. It's really well received. It was fun. You know, I'd been at Channel 3. So working with Channel 12 again, you know, I think there was.
Channel's great.
There's really one person there who was there when I was there years ago, Stephen Zinn.
Oh sure.
And it was great to see Stephen, but there's no one else there.
Well,
that I know.
It's like this business, any business, it just turns over. And but Channel 12, when I got there to do Inside Out.
Right, Colorado Inside Out, CIO.
And it was, you know, half of the people that were originally at that table. Sue O'Brien, who was running the editorial page of the Denver Post.
Right. A legend.
Patty Calhoun, of course, who's still
Westward.
there. Yeah. But it was just a circle of Al Knight.
Sure. Oh my gosh.
I mean, no, there was a round table of just really brilliant people, and I always said this was one of those things like it's a jump ball. You just go like that, and then step back, and they'll go after it.
Yeah.
And,
well, you got. I mean, when you were, you know, with that group and some of the successor groups, I mean, there was a lot of energy.
It was a great show.
A lot of excitement. Yeah. People weren't afraid to disagree.
No.
With each other, and I think it made for a really good show. It
was, modestly he said, it was destination. My cardiologist, he and his wife that was their, so many people talked about, and it wasn't me, it was this power group. And then the people who kind of ran 12 at the time, they were really kind of hands off. They were going, well, the show's really working, so
don't mess with it.
Don't mess with it. And like most or a lot of cases you and I both know of in radio and television, the new guy comes in and starts to tinker or tamper and kills the show.
Yeah.
The best example is Channel 7's news team at the time had Bob Palmer, had John Lindsay. I mean, really had this great team.
Yeah.
And you know, they're KMGH now because it's McGraw-Hill.
Right.
And they've and they went in and they started to do things. 7 was the killer station. Channel 9 slipped in there, and 4, and Bob Palmer went to 4.
And 9 hasn't looked back.
No, but they've been diminished immensely. I mean, there's.
Well, you're just mad because Adele's not there anymore.
Well, no, Adele's doing furniture ads and seems to be happy as hell. So no, good. I like Adele very much.
She's living in Arizona.
Is that where she is now?
She's been there. Yeah, they've had a place there for years.
But she's great. I mean, she.
You know, she was a race car driver.
I raced with her.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I would not do that.
No, she was just a really special woman. But no, I mean that
still
was.
Is.
Yeah, thank you. But that was when, I guess when you say radio was. And when radio, television, the newspapers. So what's happened since then? You know, the Dean Singleton, who's one of my closest, dearest friends, Dean will talk about newspapers.
Yeah.
And it's.
Well, I mean, certainly radio's changed, TV's changed, and we can talk about that.
What's changed?
But I'll finish answering the question, which I was doing in a very circumlocucious way, so my apologies. But so the deal I signed was.
What does those words mean? I think, he said.
So the deal I signed was a 1-year deal, 52 shows.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to deliver 1 a week. They're putting on prime time Friday, starting 2023 January 27th or something like
Good
that.
for you.
So 9 o'clock. You can tune in 9 o'clock starting. I hope January 27th is a Friday. If it's not, I'm in trouble. But whatever. 9 o'clock p.m. on Channel 12, PBS 12. So they're rebranding as PBS 12.
Yeah,
you know, it was Colorado Public Television, and it's
but they're separate from 6 and.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, people come up to me because I was on 12 for a number of years. I can't tell you how many people come up to me and say, "Oh, well, first of all, they think I was on Channel 6, so that was entertaining." But I love the people who came up during the. We pretty much took the pandemic off, and some of our broadcast entities. If you're in Michigan. Comcast broadcast my show 5 times a week statewide, and they continued to broadcast it during the pandemic. But they didn't have any new shows.
No,
they were just rebroadcasting shows. Comcast statewide in Indiana was broadcasting it 6 times a week. Yeah. Same thing. Yeah. Not the
but
people
you still, because you're hip to the media, and you still know when there's an out of place spot, an out of place promo. An out of place, just like you were talking about. Well, I saw this show before. Yeah, but maybe he didn't see it.
Yeah. Well, I like the people who tell me they watch it every Sunday or whatever.
Yeah. No.
During the pandemic when it wasn't here. So
yeah.
I mean, of course, it's online. HarberTV.com. You can go to Harber HARBER TV, all one word, .com, and you can. I think on our homepage, I think we still have a show I did with. Tony Fauci, Dr. Fauci, who.
How was that?
I did a couple of shows with Tony before the pandemic.
All right.
So we're in discussions about doing another show. He's about to be 82.
Yeah, no.
In just a matter of days, and is retiring in a matter of days. So this summer, he and I were going back and forth and about what to do. And I said, instead of doing a sit down, let's do something different. And he said, well, what? And he used to be the captain of his basketball team in high school. Wow. And he's a great shot. He was fast. Of course, he's 82 now.
Yeah.
So I figure I have a chance against him. I said, why don't we go on a basketball court and shoot baskets and talk? And I also thought it would give people kind of an inside look of more of who this guy is, because of course he's been vilified and terribly criticized, and he's made some mistakes too. And I want to talk about those with him as well, and I'm sure he'd be open to that. So he said, that sounds like fun, let's do it. And then he said, schedule it with so and so, and he gets every day multiple death threats. So here's a guy serving the public for 5 decades.
Yeah, he went through the AIDS epidemic too.
Oh yeah,
very much
He
so.
actually started on the wrong side of that.
Yeah,
I
he
don't
did.
know if you,
No,
you follow.
and the book, and the band played on is probably the best book.
Oh yeah.
About all of that, and you know, Fauci he's over here at that time.
Yeah, but he moved.
Yes, he did,
and I give him credit for that.
Yes, he did.
I give him,
Yes, he
and
did.
people, you know, certainly AIDS activists also ended up giving him a lot of credit.
Yeah.
Anyway, his security detail nixed the idea. So because they were afraid, you know,
out in the open.
So I'm in discussions now because I know of a basketball court in D.C. that's very secure. It's in the Hoover FBI building.
Well, it's not going to get better.
They have a full court.
Do they?
So I just wrote. Actually last night I sent a note to the deputy director, and said, hey, could we use your court? I haven't heard back from her yet, but well, maybe after the show. Yeah. So we'll see. So my backup is the White House basketball court. So.
So what's he like? What's Fauci like?
Super guy. Really caring, dedicated to the public. You know, I'm sure he's really frustrated with what's happened. And I've been very critical of NIH, of the National Institutes of Health, where he is. I've been very critical of the FDA. I've been very critical of the CDC, and very critical of the White House, because they had no preparation of what they needed to do when it came to social media, when it came to what they were going to be hit with. They were all extraordinarily arrogant, and their assumption was, if we say something, everyone has to believe it because we're the truth tellers.
And I'm no George W. Bush fan, but he actually warned.
I am now, by the way.
Are you?
No.
No. You know, this is weird because one of the things happened to me as I'm a kid breaking into business. Jess White, the legendary Jess White, the actor who was the Maytag repairman, but he was in one of my favorite movies and it's starred Jimmy Stewart and Harvey, that was written actually here in Denver, and it's a story about alcoholism. What do you mean?
It's a story about rabbits. What are you talking about?
If you see rabbits, you probably got a problem. Anyhow, so we're sitting, and he was wonderful. We're sitting during a pause, and I'm a kid, and I bring up an actor. He said he was the worst, and he does 3 or 4 minutes. That son of a goddamn. So I come back, and I said, so Jess, what about, and I've mentioned the actor's name. He said, great guy. He said, couldn't ask for a better guy. You know, and so that's, you know, you're flipping that. But yeah, I mean, that was one of my early, really, you know.
Yeah.
And so, but Fauci, he was being called the devil and a demon. And
there's a whole movie about how terrible he is.
Oh yeah.
Narrated by Robert Kennedy Jr.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well, Robert Kennedy is an interesting character in and of himself.
That's a polite way to put it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he is beloved by the anti-vax people.
Oh yeah.
And who would not want anything to do with the left of center Democrat, any other situation, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and so they lionize the guy. And no, I think he's.
So you know, and I'll tell you something really personal right now, which you weren't expecting. So just less than 4 weeks ago to today, my older sister died. And I just got back from Ithaca, New York. We just did a celebration of life. And I had gone back with my daughter, Holly, previously to bury her in a natural burial at Green Springs Cemetery in Newfield, New York. And it was a cold day. About 120 people turned out to make statements, to read poems, to sing songs, to perform all kinds of different instruments. I mean, it was just extraordinary. And dance on her grave, by the way. So, and she was a big part of the Boulder community for many years, Becca Harber. And we just got back from Celebration of Life, which, you know, they had over 100 people in the room, 100 people on Zoom and all that. Really extraordinary celebration. But she pretty much, her doctor told me she died of COVID. And She had gotten COVID. Right, she was only 72, which scares you and me. And more you than me, by the way.
That's right. A lot scares me. Yeah. Actually, when you get really old like I am, less scares you.
Yeah, that's probably right.
That's really true.
Okay, I'm waiting to get to that point. I'll just follow your lead.
No, it's.
But anyway, so her doctor made it clear. She had gotten Becca had gotten COVID early, or actually at the end of September. Her birthday was September 30th. And so she and I had gone back and forth about the vaccine, and for a couple of years, and she had never gotten vaccinated. And then her doctor prescribed Paxlovid. So Paxlovid is an antiviral, and if you take Paxlovid, 3 to 5 days after having symptoms of COVID, its efficacy is extraordinary in terms of mitigating the virus and the disease and the impacts. And you're highly unlikely to die as a result from COVID. You're highly unlikely to even be hospitalized. It's not a 100% guarantee, but it's like a 90% or higher guarantee. The one drawback is about 15% of people who take Paxlovid have a rebound version of COVID, but it's usually very mild. In fact, President Biden took Paxlovid a few months ago. He had a rebound case as well, but was fine. Tested negative after that. So her doctor prescribed Paxlovid, and we talked about it. I explained what it would do and how important it was for her to take it. She actually went and got the prescription, but never took it. She became convinced that taking it was going to be the wrong thing to do, and that it actually might kill her based on what people told her and things that she read. So my message to people who are anti-vax and who are anti-Paxlovid is to say, just be careful what you do and be thoughtful about what you do. Because if somebody's doctor has told a patient, this is a doctor who knows this person intimately on a medical level better than anyone else, and tells this person, this is what you need to do, and you dissuade that person from doing it, that's a serious responsibility. And I think a lot of people who are anti-vax and a lot of people who are anti-Paxlovid or whatever don't think about the impact that they're having.
And one of the things that's happened is in this Trump won, vax denying, almost QAnon, total conspiracy, and I've sat through it for 2 years and then went off the Daily Show. And these moments have reoccurred in history again and again and again and again, and what we're watching now has been through history before as well. And to me, as a student of history, I said, this is going to turn out exactly like that was, and the one before that, and the one before that. And I'm watching the demise of Donald Trump. I'm watching all these things, but also seeing the rise of the Q. And I'm seeing these people, we were talking about anti-Semitism before, and all of these things, they've all happened before. And it's never been to a good end. And that's one of the lessons as a history reader. This won't work out because it hasn't worked out that time, that time, that time, and that time. Yeah. And the same was true with epidemics and pandemics, and it doesn't work out well. And
let me tell you how things have changed that I think is really significant. I think there are kind of three forces that are occurring, and the confluence of those three forces is really significant for the future of the country. The first issue is social media, and the fact that, and I used to be in high tech. I used to run boutique software companies, and I think my understanding of technology is above average, to put it politely. And so when you look at how algorithms are written in code to maximize revenue for Google or for whomever, if you're on Facebook, whatever, Instagram, TikTok, etc. There's really the focus. It's not political.
It's money.
It's right. It's
it's
dollar
money. Sure,
driven. It's all about clicks and dollar driven. So and it's an incredibly powerful force because the algorithms see what you're interested in and then drive you to that. And if you're interested in crazy stuff, you're going to get a lot more crazy. Oh, I didn't know about that.
No, I understand.
There's a pizza shop that is hiding
children
Democrats with
drinking blood of children in the basement in Washington, D.C.
So that's one phenomenon. Second phenomenon is we have a number of international actors. Obviously, Russia is, Iran, North Korea, and they're really they are very adept at using social media and the openness of our society, which makes us incredibly vulnerable. But it's something we don't want to give up. I mean, we want maximum amount of freedom. I know I do, and everybody I know pretty much on the right or the left, wants to be able to express themselves.
I disagree. I think there's a lot of people want control.
Well, that's I mean, we can get into specific, but no. But they don't want themselves to be controlled.
Of course,
that's
they
my
want to control
point.
you.
Right,
no,
right. That's different. So you have a number of these enemies of the United States who are eager to harm us, eager to influence our elections. I mean, if you read the Mueller report, it's mainly about Russia's efforts in the election. It's not much about Trump.
But we now know the U.S. Attempted to influence the Israeli elections. We know that the U.S.
We're not innocent.
No, by any stretch.
But my point is, for the U.S. as a target, we are a major target. And then there's a third phenomenon that I think people tend to underestimate, and that is that because you can generate revenue by via social media by doing crazy things, there's a third group, third wave. They're not political. But they will post all kinds of stuff and see what kind of response they get. And what they found is the crazier the stuff they post, the more the algorithms drive it to other people. They get more. They actually make money off of this crazy stuff. And so it's the confluence of those three, which I think really
I've had this conversation with a lot of people like you that I really have respect for, but.
Well, you didn't have to add that part.
No, I mean, for real, because this is a really a conversation for the future. But again, as a historian, you look at Colonel McCormick or Joseph Pulitzer or the Hearst family, people like Walter Winchell that worked for the Hearsts, people like Father Coughlin on the radio, Huey Long, you go through these people. They have existed before.
Oh, yeah.
And this is not so much different than yellow journalism or how Colonel McCormick planned on selling papers or, for that matter, created wars. The Spanish-American War was created in the media. And I go also about the FBI. I just finished The Life of Roy Cohn, and I'm reading a book I can't quite put down, but I can't get to the finish. It's called G-Man. So a woman historian from Yale, who for the first time in 15 years has a new book on Hoover. And for you, I recommend to people that I respect, read that book. Well, the FBI has always been politicized. When people talk about, well, under Trump or under Joe Biden, what Hoover and Clyde Tolleson and what they were doing, particularly Hoover, and before the FBI, when they were doing the Palmer raids and all this kind of stuff. So again, yes, I mean, Zuckerberg has a tremendous amount of power. Musk is losing his as we speak. I mean, he's tanking a little. We'll see. But if you go back and look at
he's been able to take a $44 billion investment and reduce its value to $4 billion, which is, I mean, that's a magic trick.
But if you look at the people that were, they were the kings, the press kings in this country. I mean, I forget how many papers Hearst had. how many papers, and when Pulitzer, and it's interesting they give the award as a Pulitzer Award. If you had any idea how this guy operated. So is it just the same old game moved into modern technology? And I watch my grandson on a computer. And when I have problems, I call him, and he's not 11 yet. I go, hey,
send me his number.
No, really. I mean, but he is, and so these young people, and as they're pushing us out, I was influenced by so many different things as a young man, as a kid growing up in Pittsburgh.
You mean you're not on Twitch 8 hours a day?
No, I actually, I have, and it sounds bizarre because of what we do. I'm not on any of these things. I won't go near it because, first of all, I don't understand it. Number two, I've seen the damage it can do, and I have enough problems, but I know people that do radio shows that, I mean, they get, and you're just getting gutted, and I mean, I don't mind it. I mean, it's okay, but is it something that my grandson will catch up to? And talk radio that you and I both love, at one time was this, now it's that. And it just took the shift right with the rest of the crazies. The generation of the people who created cable news 24/7, they got to have, when Channel 9 does a 5 o'clock, and they're done at 5:30, and then they do the network, and then Kyle Clark comes from at the top of the hour to the bottom. Okay, fine. These guys, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you got to feed the monkey. And there's a wonderful book came out years ago called The Little Engine That Could, how the creation of CNN. And everybody threw rocks at CNN until the first Gulf War. And so there are these moments, these epochs, if you would. So I don't know what we're watching. I know that if history is our teacher, it will do what the others have done before. And right now we're seeing CNN being diminished. I mean, all these kinds of things. And so how do always the question is, how do they make money?
So, I mean, if you look at what was happening in 2014, if you look at the ratings early 2015, MSNBC's ratings were in the tank.
Yes.
CNN's ratings were low. Fox was still doing
Donald Trump made these people well.
As soon as he entered the race, their numbers literally doubled overnight.
Absolutely.
He made so much money for MSNBC, for CNN, and for Fox as well.
And I always say Barack Obama was the greatest gun salesman that ever existed in America. He becomes president of the United States, everybody goes buys guns.
Right.
And now he's no longer president of the United States, and these guys got guns.
Well,
there's nothing wrong with it.
Actually, if you look at the amount of purchases in the last few months, they're off the charts.
It's back again.
Yeah.
It's the same drill. It's the same old song, only it's being sung over here.
Right.
Again, as a reader, there's a card that gets played. History talks about playing cards. The Palestinians play the Zionist card, the Zionists play the Palestinian card. The Catholics in Ireland play the Protestant card, the Protestants play the Catholic card. The Koreans will play the Japanese card. I mean, it's like, and again, it kind of makes you go to your corner and sit down on the stool and watch the fight,
But, I think things are different. I mean, if you look at the pandemic, the fact that
changed everything.
Over 1 million people have died.
No, I agree.
That's a huge. That's not a. I mean, that is a historic event. It's not a pattern repeating.
It was the Spanish flu of the First World War.
Right, but when you look at why this happened, when we had a vaccine, I mean, what's really fascinating to me is, we had a vaccine. It was created, and I give Donald Trump the credit for this. Operation Warp Speed was his crowning achievement.
And if he were still president of the United States, nobody would be talking against the vaccine.
Well, that's not true, because what he did was he gave the green light to Operation Warp Speed. They took advantage of mRNA research, which had been going on for 2 decades. A lot of people think, they just invented this today. That wasn't true. It's, that research has been going on for years. But its application in this case, that's what was new. His program was extraordinarily successful. he greenlit a multi-billion-dollar effort.
I agree.
With this creative approach, saying to the pharmaceutical companies that signed on that, hey, we want you to develop this. We want you to start manufacturing the vaccine. If your vaccine doesn't get approved, we're covering your costs. Yeah. I mean, it was a huge gamble.
I agree with you.
Huge gamble. But then what happened was, very shortly into the pandemic, because of the anti-vax sentiment, he switched sides.
I know, I agree.
He flipped, and instead of saying, hey, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, I've done something, well, he did initially say, that no one else has done. And so he got caught.
Yeah.
So he got caught. His base pushed him into being essentially an anti-vaxxer.
A new word came into the political lexicon of our country. It's called big pharma. It was like, now it's like corporate media
well, big pharma's been that term's been around a long time.
Of course, but not to be the enemy. I mean, it was like, it's big pharma, they're making money. Big pharma does this, big pharma does. But when it became big pharma, it was the devil. And I mean, I'm doing talk shows, and the rise of the devil of big pharma. And and again, I look at these things as they're just part and parcel of a society that's moving into an area, and this is I want to wrap up the show with you, into an area that I don't begin to understand. I don't know what's going to happen next. Nobody can see around corners. I mean, that goes without saying. But what do you see the next 2 to 3 years bringing, everyday people in Colorado, Denver, the country? You pick.
So, a lot of the predictions are we are in for a real rough ride. I'm predicting, and I'm an optimist, I'm predicting the next 2 years are going to be kind of more a lateral move. I don't think the stock market's going to crash. I don't think it's going to go up much. You have the Fed increasing interest rates. I think that's going to slow certainly housing down in a significant way. You have inflation abating. I don't think it's going down at the rate certainly the Fed would like. I also think that a lot of people, not people at the bottom of the economic food chain, but a lot of people in the middle and up have a lot of cash still. The government has given out trillions of dollars. We've got programs that are going to be spending billions of federal dollars for the next at least 5 years, and maybe up to 10. So I think that makes the possibility of a severe recession diminished. I don't think we'll have a severe recession. I think we may have a mild recession. You still have people the hiring rates, over 250,000 last month, which was a surprise to a lot of the economists. So I don't want to say the next 2 years are going to be boring because we have a presidential election, but I think for most people, are going to manage just fine. In Colorado, our housing prices are just sky high. We have issues that we have done a terrible job with. Homelessness is a great example. You have the whole Colorado River situation going on. So we have a lot of challenges, but I think most people here are going to be okay. So my prediction is you're going to be okay.
No, I sure hope you're right.
And I'm going to be okay.
Like I'm one of these guys that capitalism is elastic, and if you study history, again, Peter quit this, but you can't know good times without knowing bad.
Right.
And the planned economies to try and level things out are always failures. And so, once again, it's elastic. It expands, it contracts. I hope you're right. I hope my thinking's wrong. Aaron Harber, everybody. This was a whale of a show.
Hey.
Unexpected pleasure to sit with you. You are the man. And maybe start doing some radio with us as well, too.
Well, that's real work. I'm staying away from that.
So
TV's way easier.
Plug when you're on so people know when the new show begins.
All right. Starting January, I hope 27th is a Friday. If not, pick a date. But 9 o'clock p.m., Channel 12, PBS 12, from 9 to 9:30. every night, every Friday for a year, and we'll see if they want me after that.
I'll see you Saturday morning, 9 a.m. straight down the hall on 710 KNUS. Robert Spencer is going to come on the show. One of the blackouts in the world right now is what's taking place in Iran. Iran's almost into a full-blown revolution, and there's little, if any, attention given. And we're going to try and pair up two of my favorite people, Sandy Clough and Joe the Hitman Williams, talk show host extraordinaire, about your Denver Broncos. Meantime, Mark Crowley, thanks. Aaron Harber, this was a good one. I'll see you guys down the show Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Thank you very much for watching this.